morning, my creative peeps. I have discovered my parents' bedroom has great lighting, so I'm taking advantage of it, but the only way to make it not flicker is if I were to not move, which I hope you guys realize is a total impossibility for me. I found this line out of a song, and I'm going to use it for a quote of the day. It's out of a song by Rich Mullins. Don't know if you know him, but he said, "You're on the verge of a miracle, just waiting to be believed in." Okay, maybe that doesn't do anything for you, but it does it for me, for you. In my studies of geniuses in the last 25 years, two things have clearly stood out to me as key to genius, and that is all of the geniuses throughout history and even geniuses today use journals. They use journals. While the rest of the world thinks journals is a luxury if you have time, creatives think journaling is a priority. The other one is visual thinking. And I believe visual thinking is the long lost secret path to genuine genius. And we're going to Do you know he left 3,500 notebooks? 3,500 notebooks. They're all in a temperature-controlled vault in New Jersey. And this is what somebody said about these journals. They read like a turbulent brainstorm and present a verbal and visual biography of Edison's mind at work. I don't know if you guys know this. He had no formal education. He verbally and visually filled up 3,500 notebooks. So for those of you who think that the purpose of journals is beauty, you can have a mess in your journals. Today we're going to begin with the first R of art. When I say the first R is art, it actually means all the arts. Genius thinking is about perception. But all the arts train us in all the different types of perceptions. Like when we learn dance or even massage, you're learning a form of perception. There's actually like, I don't know, at least 9 or 10 perceptions. There's probably a whole lot more. However, visual perception trumps every other perception. 40% of our brain is for the use of visual perception. Why art? To do a beautiful painting? That's a good reason. But my reasoning is I want to release the creative thinking in people. And so doing beautiful paintings is a bonus. I think you guys are going to find that the more and more we develop in these visual thinking skills, the more your creativity is going to develop in every area of your life. How many geniuses have we lost throughout history because we've made academic thinking the priority over creative thinking? Because we didn't even think you could teach creative thinking, but you can. And you're going to hear me say this stuff over and over again because your subconscious mind will not believe it without repetition. Repetition makes something relevant, and when it becomes relevant, then we believe it. So you're going to hear me say it over and over again. I'm going to give you a list of reasons why you need to learn art right now and why that should be a priority, even over reading and writing. So reading and writing teaches us to think linearly, step by step, a very slow way of thinking. Visual thinking sees everything all at once. It's a faster way of thinking. It's called Gestalt, where it's like you get it all at once. So that's one reason for learning how to draw. Another reason for drawing is none of us see accurately, you guys. Most of us only see about 10% of what's right in front of us. 10%. Remember the iceberg metaphor? We all have these beliefs and values and expectations and past experiences. In other words, if we don't have an expectation to see something, we won't see it. We only see according to what we believe and value. If there are solutions to problems right in front of us, hidden in plain sight, we won't see them. The other part of that is that our expectations sometimes about what we think we will see are so strong that we will see what is not actually there. We'll see something that doesn't actually exist because we expect to see that. So my point is for us to release judgment, because judgment narrows our ability to access creativity. But you guys, we also do that when we judge others. I see this happening right here with my own family based on, my dad. So my dad sees all of us kids the way he remembers us as children. So he has an expectation of how we will act, which is not true of who we are now as grown-up adults. And who I am now isn't who I was last year, but yet his expectation of who I am, he puts that on me, and he sees something that isn't true about me. And I believe that's what we all do of all people. We will see somebody and judge them not based on who they are, because we may not know who they are at all. I see that even with people watching TV. My family watching TV judges the people they see on TV. Now they don't even know these people, right? It has to do more with their past experiences, their beliefs, and their values. So I think this is one of the reasons that we don't grow in creativity. We could learn from an infinite amount of people, but when we judge people and when we judge where they're coming from, we then can't receive from them. And we need to receive, cross-pollinate from other people, ideas and solutions, even if we don't agree with their values. Art really is, by the way, excellent training in releasing judgment. I think art is also excellent training in practice making mistakes, because when you learn how to draw, most people are confused about drawing. They think that when you draw, the first line you draw should be accurate. 99% of the time, the first line you draw isn't accurate. Drawing is not like creating a photograph. Drawing is more like a discovery process. Because when you put your first line down, you relate the next line to that line. And maybe by the time you draw more lines, you'll find out the first line was put in the wrong spot, and so you have to move it. So you will see a lot of artists will draw very light lines when they first start drawing. So it's a discovery process, and you find out that the first lines were a mistake or not. We're training in mistake making without judging those mistakes, that they're actually an essential part of the discovery of where the right line is. And if we all learned art very young and learned that making mistakes is part of the eventual successful drawing we want to make, and we apply that to life and all of creativity and genius, that our first mistake making is an essential part of our eventual success. So here's another reason for art. Art is an image-based language. The value of learning art as a language is that you're learning the language of kingdom, and you're training and developing it. You're learning the language of genius, training and developing in it. And the image-based or visually based language is universally understood, way better than any other language. So that's another reason. And if you remember Jeremiah, his educational curriculum with God was a visual-based curriculum. Drawing is one of the ways that our brains can make sense of the world. And drawing actually helps us make sense of ourselves as well. Drawing is training in imagination. Okay, I do want to say this. Most people think, well, it's totally impossible for me to have innovative thoughts. I'm just not that smart. But Innovative thinking actually comes out of the process of creativity. And the process of creativity is birthed from mastering the process of imagination. Imagination comes from the process of learning how to see, and learning how to see comes from the process of drawing, art. So if you learn how to draw, you will learn how to see, which will increase your imagination, which increases your creative thinking, which then makes you an innovative thinker. So you guys, you are on the verge of a miracle. So the PDF I am going to include today is 3 circles. So pull up that first PDF and you're going to see seeing, imagining, and drawing. This is level 1 of visual thinking. Each of these are a way of thinking. Seeing is a way of thinking, drawing is a way of thinking, and imagining is a way of thinking. And I didn't finish all the reasons why you need to learn art. Okay, we'll come back to level 1 of visual thinking. Art is also the fastest way for us to shift out of left-minded thinking into right-minded thinking. We learn how to do that shift by doing art because we learn to know what it feels like. And left-minded thinking and right-minded thinking is very much like a coin. You know, you can't see both sides of a coin at the same time. Well, you guys, we also can't do left-minded thinking and right-minded thinking at the same time. We can only do one or the other. What I hope to train you guys in is how to know when you're in right-minded thinking, how to get there intentionally, and what it feels like when you're there. Using art is one of the fastest ways to learn that. There are lots of other ways to shift into right-minded thinking, but training in the arts is one of the fastest ways to learn. Another reason for art is creativity right now is the most valued and needed skill in our cultures because it's decreasing. One last thing I wanted to say is that visual literacy is more valuable than verbal literacy. Not just today, but always has been. And Einstein would agree. He said, I'm enough of an artist to draw freely on my imagination. He said he was an artist, people, which I think is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, but imagination encircles the world. Seeing, drawing, and imagining, because I want to give you an activation on the 5 perceptions of drawing. We'll talk about thinking by seeing, thinking by drawing, thinking by imagination. Thinking by drawing, in order to do that, and there's tons of ways to do that. There's observational drawing, which is the way you learn how to see. There is gestural drawing, there is analytic drawing, emotive drawing, analog drawing. So there's lots of drawing. We'll talk about that another time. Don't be overwhelmed by it. But what I do want to tell you is there are 5 perceptions you learn by drawing. You learn the perception of edges, the perception of space, the perception of relationships, the perception of values, and the perception of the whole. And we will go into more of these in the future, but your activity in your journal today is going to be learning the perception of edges, because this is the language of line. In I Create Genius group, we talked about taking a line for a walk, and that's like just the beginning, because there's a whole language to line itself. Line teaches us the edges and boundaries of things. So not only by learning to perceive the edges of what we see right in front of us, we can shift that to also thinking about the edges and boundaries of a problem we're working out. What are the boundaries of a problem? Where does one thing begin and another end? And believe it or not, training in edges and boundaries through understanding the language of line trains us and shifts into other areas of our life. So I am going to include a PDF rather than tell you on this video on your activity on how to see and train in edges. Okay? All right, you guys, thanks for hanging in with my chatting today. All right, love you guys. So proud of you. Thanks for hanging in there.